The first thing I registered was the smell, a cloying, sweet decay that clung to the air like a shroud. Beyond that, the silence. Not the peace of a country field, but the heavy, expectant quiet of a place long abandoned, punctuated only by the distant, guttural moan that was so fundamentally wrong. I blinked, my vision slowly resolving, and the reality of my predicament slammed into me with the force of a bungee zombie. I wasn't in my living room. I wasn't even in my own house. This was a digital landscape, yes, but one I now inhabited with terrifying tangibility. The peeling wallpaper, the shattered window panes, the overturned furniture, it was all too real. This was the world of Plant vs. Zombies, but not as I knew it. There were no neat lanes, no preset lawnmowers, no Dave's Tacos. This was a sandbox, a ruined world, and I was stranded within it. My starting point was a derelict shack, barely more than a skeleton of splintered wood and broken dreams. Dust motes danced in the slivers of sunlight that pierced the grimy windows. A quick search of the single, sparse room yielded nothing but a torn curtain and a faint sense of dread. No seed packets, no suns, just emptiness. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to overwhelm me. How was I supposed to survive? My only comfort was the distant, endless groaning, a constant reminder of the primary threat. I pushed open the rickety front door, stepping onto what was once a cracked pavement. The street stretched before me, a ghost town of dilapidated houses, overgrown lawns, and the occasional shambling figure. My only objective, a primal one, was to live. Days blurred into a monotonous cycle of cautious exploration. Each abandoned house was a gamble. Sometimes, I'd find nothing but cobwebs and despair. Other times, a fleeting glint in the dust would reveal a treasure, a small, unassuming packet of seeds. My first find was a trio of pea shooter seeds, nestled in a forgotten toolbox in a collapsing garage. A few days later, a sunflower packet materialized from beneath a child's overturned tricycle. I hoarded them, their potential a fragile flame against the encroaching darkness. The sheer scale of the ruins was daunting. Block after block of identical, yet uniquely ravaged, homes. I needed a base, a proper refuge. The shack I started in was too exposed, too small. I wandered, avoiding direct confrontation with the lurching brain eaters, using their slow, predictable movements to my advantage. I saw the familiar forms of coneheads and bucketheads, but also stranger, more mutated variants that sent shivers down my spine. This wasn't just a mod, it was an evolution. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I found it. A two-story house on a street corner, its white picket fence mostly intact, albeit leaning precariously. Its roof still held, a rarity, and a small, overgrown backyard promised potential. More importantly, it had a single, unbroken window on the second floor, a small beacon of hope. This felt right. This felt like home. The first task was clearing. The interior was a mausoleum of broken furniture and desiccated plants. I spent days hauling debris outside, creating a sizable rubbish pile at the curb. The physical exertion was surprisingly satisfying, a tangible mark of progress. I boarded up the shattered windows with planks scavenged from other ruined homes, creating a dark, but secure, interior. The sound of hammering echoed eerily in the silence, a bold defiance against the oppressive quiet. Then came the planting. The backyard, once a tangled mess of weeds, was slowly transformed into a rudimentary garden. I dug the soil with a rusty trowel I had found in the shed, my hands aching, but my spirit soaring. My first pea shooters went along the perimeter, their stoic faces turning towards the street, vigilant. Next, the sunflowers. They were vital. In the game, they generated suns, the currency. Here, I hoped they would generate a different kind of energy, a life force. But a home needed more than just defense. It needed sustenance. Food was a constant worry. I had managed to find a few moldy bread crusts and some surprisingly intact, if stale, bags of chips in ransacked kitchens, but that wouldn't last. I needed a sustainable food source. My breakthrough came in a partially flooded basement. There, amidst the murky water, I found a forgotten packet, puff shroom spores. Puff shrooms. They were small, nocturnal, and, crucially, edible in a pinch. They wouldn't make a gourmet meal, but they were a start. I cultivated them in the darkest corner of my backyard, under a makeshift tarp, hoping their slightly earthy, mushroomy taste would keep me alive. Water was another pressing concern. Rain was sporadic, and I had no way to collect it efficiently. Most houses had broken pipes. The solution presented itself in the form of a rusted, half-buried water pump in a neighbor's derelict garden. It took a full day of back-breaking work, clearing roots and debris, to expose it. Another day of oiling and priming, using a scavenged can of WD-40, and then, with a hopeful pump, a gurgle, and then a trickle, clean water. It was slow, barely a cup a minute, but it was clean and mine. I set up a collection system using old buckets and plastic sheets, every drop precious. With food and water secured, albeit primitively, my mind turned to the final, most elusive piece of the puzzle, energy. The houses were dark, cold at night. A flickering flashlight powered by scavenged batteries was my only light. I needed something more, something sustainable, something that could truly make this house a home. The prompt had said the energy source came from a plant. But which one? My search for the energy plant became an obsession. I ventured further, braver now, my pea shooters providing a perimeter of safety. I learned to run, to duck, to use the environment to my advantage against the shambling horrors. I found more seeds, walnuts for stronger defense, potato mines for traps, even a few cherry bombs, which I hoarded like gold. But no energy plant. Then, one sun-drenched afternoon, deep in a forgotten greenhouse, I saw it. It wasn't in a packet. It wasn't a seed. It was a single, vibrant bloom, nestled amongst dead vines, pulsating with a faint, internal light. Its petals were a deep indigo, almost black, but its center glowed with an ethereal, crackling blue. It looked like a lily, but far more alien, more powerful. It hummed with an almost imperceptible vibration. I extended a tentative finger, drawn by an irresistible curiosity. As I touched it, a faint jolt, like static electricity, coursed through my hand. This was it. This had to be it. I carefully dug around its roots, transferring it to a large, cracked pot I found nearby. I named it the spark bloom. Bringing the spark bloom home was an ordeal. I cradled the pot like a newborn, my heart pounding with fear of dropping it or attracting unwanted attention. Back in my sanctuary, I found the perfect spot for it, a sunny, south-facing windowsill on the ground floor. I tended to it with a devotion I hadn't known I possessed. I gave it the purest water from my pump, spoke to it in low tones, and watched, mesmerized, as it slowly, incrementally, grew. The spark bloom seemed to absorb the sun's rays, not just for photosynthesis, but for something more. Its internal glow intensified with each passing day. The faint hum grew into a gentle thrum. After what felt like weeks, a new bud formed, then another, until the pot held a small cluster of glowing, indigo blooms. One evening, as dusk bled into night, the house plunged into its usual oppressive darkness. I sat by the spark bloom, feeling its subtle warmth. Suddenly, a tiny surge, like a ripple, emanated from the plant. A loose wire from an old, discarded lamp I had found, and fiddled with sat near the base of the plant. Driven by an impulse, I carefully stripped the lamp's fraying wires and placed them near the spark bloom's glowing center. For a long moment, nothing. Then, a low crackle. The lamp's bulb flickered, struggling, and then, with a triumphant pop, it burst into a brilliant, steady glow. My breath hitched. Light. Real, continuous light. Not a battery-powered beam, but a steady, defiant illumination. Tears pricked my eyes. The energy. It was real. The spark bloom was a living generator. Over the next few days, I worked on expanding its reach. Using more scavenged wires and a basic understanding of circuits, I rigged up a rudimentary lighting system, connecting it all back to the magnificent spark bloom. The house, once a tomb, now glowed from within. The light was a beacon, yes, but also a deterrent. Zombies were less likely to approach a lit dwelling, preferring the comforting shroud of darkness. My home was no longer just a shelter, it was a fortress. The pea shooters stood guard, their little faces resolute. The puff shrooms provided their earthy sustenance. The water pump tirelessly brought forth life. And the spark bloom, my precious energy source, bathed the living room in a soft, blue luminescence, chasing away the shadows and the pervasive dread. I sat by the window, watching the moonlight illuminate the street, the distant, mournful groans now sounding less menacing, more like a background hum. My house stood defiant, a testament to survival, rebuilding, and the unexpected tenacity of a player thrust into a sandbox world. The journey was far from over, the dangers ever present. But here, amidst my plans, powered by a strange, beautiful bloom, I had found more than just survival. I had found home. and that, in this ruined world, was everything.